Bank Negara menaikkan kadar dasar semalaman OPR sebanyak 25 mata asas kepada 2% pada mesyuarat jawatankuasa dasar monetarinya. Tindakan yang dianggap luar jangkaan oleh penganalisis ekonomi bertujuan bagi mengurangkan risiko inflasi.
Before we start, let me introduce our group members. The first one we have AINA, NATRA, MELLYANA and SOPHIA.
Firstly, I'm gonna talk about inflation. So, what is inflation? Inflation occurs when there is continuous increase in the general level of price. This means that firstly, all the goods and services in the company experience a rise in prices. Secondly, general price level is rising continuously in the long term. And thirdly, the general price level is very high. Firstly, I'm going to talk about raising interest rate. The central bank will persuade commercial banks to increase their rates of interest from public. This will make the cost of borrowing and the debt from the bank will increase and will make the public will reduce the loans that were made. As a result, the money supply in economy will decrease.
Next, the total of saving. Interest rate used to influence the cost of borrowing for consumption. The higher the interest rate, the lower the wish of consumer to borrow. For example, an increase of interest rate on fixed deposit from 4% to 10% will result in consumer saving more and spending less. The high rate of interest will attract and encourage more people to save, and this will increase the level of saving. Next, the money supply. Interest rate seen as a requirement for controlling consumer spending. Money supply and interest rate having an inverse relationship. When money supply decreases, the interest rate will increase. More money flowing through the economy correspond with lower interest rates, while less money available generate higher rates.
Next is purchasing power. So what happens to purchasing power when interest rate is increased? So purchasing power can weaken over time due to inflation. This is because due to a rise in prices across the economy. And inflation can make rising prices effectively decrease the number of goods or service consumers can buy. And also, the purchasing power of money can be reduced as consumers will need to fork out more money to buy the same quantity of goods and service. Next is a price level. So price level are leading indicators in the economy. For example, rising prices indicate higher demand leading to inflation, while declining prices indicate lower demand or deflation. But if the government raises the interest rate, then the price of goods tends to decline, so that economic stability can be achieved.
Commercial banks are financial institutions that are owned by the public company. All commercial banks in Malaysia are controlled by Bank Negara Malaysia under the Bank and Financial Institutions Act 1989. Here are a few examples of commercial banks in Malaysia, such as Public Bank, Maybank, CIMB Bank and Afin Bank. Now, let's move on to the function of commercial bank. One of the function is to accept deposits. There are three types of deposits that are accepted by the commercial bank, which is fixed, current and savings deposits. The next function is to make and receive payments. These are the common facilities that are provided by the commercial banks. Last but not least is conducting investment activities. This assists investors to convert foreign currency and receive revenue from foreign investment into local currency. In conclusion, we learned that during inflation, the central bank will increase the bank rates of commercial banks to provide loans so that the supply money in the economy and inflation will decrease.